Monthly plan+Pok mon+Ruined Library+Brain Lobe Company +Border Prison Bus. The wonderful collision between Pokemon and the Moon Project. A familiar old friend from the ruined library. The ego of the Brain Lobe Company. The border prison bus of the creative death leader. As a former city bumpkin, Carlos's tragic life was supposed to have ended in 9 people being killed by explosives in the basement, but he accidentally crossed into the world of Pokemon. What? You ask me why the Moon Ibrahimovic is going crazy. Please, my Moon Ib is just a poor child. Look how weak and powerless he is now in front of the floating fairy Ib Cromo Sun Ib. What? Why do you ask me if I'm good at fighting? Please, I'm a waveguide warrior. It's normal for me to kill you with my insect arm, isn't it? There are too few border prison bus articles in the monthly plan. So as a monthly plan person, let's create your own ideas. Chapter 1. Colorless Firelight. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Front row reminder, there may be some issues with this book because I am a new fan of Pokemon. If there are any mistakes, I can remind the author in the comments section. At the same time, I hope everyone can provide more opinions and interact more. After all, the majority of people who can see this book are Pokemon fans and border prison fans. I think the reason why I can enter these 2 circles is usually because people who love these games. Thank you all here. T-Nest, a nest that controls time, has no trace of color here, just like an old photo. Time is something that all living beings possess, and it is also a constraint on all living beings. Birth, aging, illness, and death are both cycles and curses. However, the singularity of time controlled by T-Nest has shattered the shackles of time. Humans use time from immortality to keeping a person alive for a period of time, so time has been firmly held in their hands. But this supreme privilege can only be mastered and enjoyed by the rich, and it remains unchanged in the cycle of urban suffering. Only with wealth and strength can one control everything. The poor and weak are firmly grasped by the city from the moment they are born, becoming one of the huge gears of this machine. Are you really sure you're not leaving? At this moment, Dongbai looked seriously at the man in front of him. The entrance to the basement was constantly being hit, and all the members of the 9 People Association had left, leaving only the 2 of them holding the final line of defense inside the basement. Forget it, I won't leave. The man in front of him had claws on his left hand that looked like a beetle, while his other hand was quietly caressing the glass window. In this gray world, only this one was colorful. I spent half of my life drifting, until I met the family of the 9 People Association. I really don't want to drift anymore. Let me, Brother Ling's masterpiece, and everything that the 9 People Association once had turned into ashes together. Carlos looked at the color in the mirror and remembered the bits and pieces of the past, although in his memory it was always gray, just like the city, gray and lifeless. But once those memories were colorful, even if T-Nest deprived them of their color, they could not destroy the color in their hearts. However, all of this eventually turned into endless black as the 9 People Association disintegrated. He calmly pulled out a chair from the side and sat down beside it, as if accepting the fate of himself and the 9 People Association. Give me the remote control. You escaped from that hidden tunnel, and I want all of you to see a colorless fireworks display. Carlos took out a pack of cigarettes from his arms, took out a cigarette from it with his modified left hand, and silently lit a cigarette for himself as he took deep breaths and smoke sprayed out of his nose. The bitter nicotine gradually brought his spirit back to calm, but the terrifying sense of guilt penetrated deep into his spine. Carlos. Dongbai handed the remote control to him and looked at him reluctantly. Finally, he took a glance and remembered everything here, then pushed open the hidden door and rushed inside. Dong! The basement door was smashed open, and T Company's agents came to look at the gold on their official personnel, the disgusting colors of those bureaucratic privileged individuals. Carlos spat out the cigarette in disgust and finally pressed the detonator amidst everyone's frightened gaze. Bang! A huge explosion erupted from the basement, and the 9 People Association, the stage that once carried their dreams and the safe haven they had worked hard to manage, turned into nothing with the loud bang and those colorless flames. Quick! Rabbi is right ahead. At this moment, a large group of members of the rocket team were chasing the trail of Rabbi, the god of the forest. There are always some unscrupulous people who want to catch me. But hee. It's still too early to catch me. The green onion chuckled and crossed time, but he was completely unaware of the consequences that would arise this time. At this moment, the other side the explosion tore apart Carlos's body and also shattered the glass windows in the basement. However, unexpectedly, the spatial fluctuations caused by the passage of time and space by the time Rabbi brought opportunities for everything. The glass window refracts possibilities in parallel universes, and in a certain world, Carlos is a trainer in the Pokémon world. Time fluctuations, combined with fragments of the glass window, unexpectedly create refractions that open cracks in time. Oh! Some outsider has arrived. At this moment, the sleeping alpaca suddenly felt the arrival of an outsider. He examined the outsider's soul and confirmed that the other person had no ill intentions before preparing to sleep again. Hey! There's something special about this little guy. Watching the colorful light hidden in the little guy's soul, which made the alpaca feel interesting, he took out his own world editor and decided to give the little guy a small gift. Wake up! Wake up! In the darkness, a voice suddenly woke up Carlos, who was unconscious. Who are you? Carlos instinctively asked. Master is me. I am the brain computer system you created. Brain machine. Upon hearing the familiar name, Carlos suddenly came to his senses. At the time of the 9 People meeting, he once created a brain chip that could load many programs, such as cognitive filters, electronic information libraries, intelligence analyzers, etc. At that time, he was just creating for fun and had no intention of releasing it. After all, he knew that if this thing was installed in the minds of workers, those capitalists would constantly monitor them. And the 9 of them will only be a group of people who love to invent, and they will only use their own invented technology as toys. So he won't publish this thing, he just put it in his mind as his first invention, and never expected that at this time, brain machines would still appear. That's right, Master. However, I have some unfortunate news to tell you that you have already passed away. Brain Machine said with some regret, after his testing, he had already been blown into pieces. Yeah, I know. Dongbai's explosives are very powerful, so I guess I've left nothing left. Carlos said with a bitter smile, but he didn't know how much he had become. Sorry, Li Xiang. Sorry, Brother Ling He. It seems that the 9 of us will only be able to meet in the next life. Looking back on his life, Carlos felt that he was not very successful, but also not too many failures. It was just a pity that he still had some regrets, some unfulfilled wishes, and that deep-seated sin. But after all, if you are dead, don't worry about these useless things. I know, so I have a way to resurrect my master. But this way requires a gamble. Brain Machine has some hesitant remarks. Anyway, I'm already dead. Let's talk about it. Carlos said calmly, he had already died once when he participated in the smoke war. Due to Brother Ling's glass window technology, light and shadow can be projected onto other universes, and there is a universe in front of us that has opened its doors due to time cracks. What do you mean? I was thinking that we could project the Master's consciousness and soul into the body of that cosmic Master, but we don't know what that universe looks like. It's okay. I'm no longer afraid of death. It's better to die again and project directly. Carlos said calmly, his past battles on the battlefield had made him feel an unusual numbness and calmness towards death. Good. With Carlos's command, refraction has already begun. In a burst of darkness and dizziness, his soul quickly shuttled back and forth, finally arriving in this new world, and his life, which should have come to an end, resumed writing. Chapter 2. New World, New Life. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Character Template Carlos Character Skill 1. Skill, Claw/Coin 5+6. Attribute, Melancholy, Attack Behavior, / if a coin is facing, it can inflict 3 layers of bleeding on the target. Character Skill 2 skills. Claw Sting, Coin 3+4+5 Attributes. Overeating, Attack Behavior. Sting, if both coins are facing, each coin can apply 2 layers of rupture. Character Skills 3 skills. Paralyze 1 Strike, Coin 3+18 Attributes. Anger, Attack Behavior, Strike, if one coin is frontal, apply 6 layers of paralysis to the target. Passive Character. The appearance of the passive game has the Gluttony gene source code G.03. If you win the battle, you will recover 5 health points. Dodge Skill. Escape Reality Points 4+13. Each successful dodge restores 1 health point. Escaping Shameful but effective. Carlos, Gollum. Carlos successfully refracted into this world, but unfortunately, it refracted in a lake. Brain Machine. You his mother me. Carlos kept struggling in the water. Originally, he could swim, but the key was that he was born in the river and his body was extremely weak, which made it impossible for him to swim to the shore. Warning. Warning. The Brain Machine system has been hacked and is fully resisting the intruder, unlocking system functions. Damn it. My life is at rest. As he exhausted his last bit of strength, he began to sink into the water, and the surrounding Carp King saw the prey and began to swim towards him, ready to feast on it. At this moment, a strange force dragged him out of the water and pulled him to the shore. An hour ago, why? A small blue figure shuttles through the forest. If you take a closer look, you will find that this is a young and exotic Larula. Pokemon's cubs are difficult to survive in the forest, and it is unknown why this Larula is alone in the forest. Why am I born this blue? Why? After running for a long time, Larula sat under a tree, crying softly. The multicolored and shining Pokemon are particularly precious in the eyes of trainers, but in the Pokemon community, they may develop a sense of disgust towards them if they consider them to be exotic. So this also leads to the strange and shining Pokemon always being alone, making it difficult to find a shelter for the tribe to survive. However, even if it were to expel, it would not expel such a young Larulus. What is the difference between this and another kind of killing? Since you all see me as a monster, then I won't go back. Little Larulus firmly wiped away her tears and decided to go find some water to drink first. I remember there was a lake here, as my mother once said. Little Larulus followed the direction of her memories and arrived at a riverbank. Her mother, an adult Xanadu, was also the chieftain of the tribe. With her mother's protection, even if she was a different color, she wouldn't have been expelled until that incident. Brain Machine. You his mother me. At this moment, a roar came from the lake, which frightened little Larulus and made him hide behind the tree, trembling as he looked towards this side. Human beings. The little Larurasi looked at the person struggling in the water and instinctively wanted to use her imagination to pull him out of the water, but she also remembered her mother's warning. Humans are all a group of villains who want to subdue us and lock us in a dark elf ball. In my memory, the words my mother said at the time were filled with anger, and for the first time, her gaze revealed a murderous intent. Damn it. My life is at rest. The humans who fell into the water gradually lost their strength and sank into the water. Forget it. I must save him. Her pure and kind nature prevented Larulus from watching a person drown alive in the water. She used her psychic power to drag it out. Is he really human? Looking at Carlos's insect-like left hand, little Aluras couldn't help but wonder if she had really saved someone, not a Pokemon. Cough, cough, cough. During his coma, Carlos spat out a few mouthfuls of water. He only felt like he had been saved by someone, but he was still in an unconscious state. Ah. In a daze, he found himself in a forest, where a raging fire was burning. The surrounding trees fell and burned with the flames, and a figure was pressed under the burning trees in the flames. Even though that figure was already at the end of a strong crossbow, he still exuded a strong and just aura. Thank you, I understand. Also, thank you for taking care of her all the time. The figure pressed under the tree suddenly thanked him, and the flames around him gradually devoured everything, just like their 9-people association, which was eventually turned into nothing by the flames. It's getting dark, we need to quickly find a place to rest. Little Larulus used his mental strength to pull the collar of his shirt, constantly dragging him forward. Artillery! 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 At this moment, Carlos encountered the battlefield again and returned to the one he would never forget. Hold on. Gregor, we will definitely go home safely. I will definitely take you home safely. The loud explosion, happy 14th birthday. Carlos. What do you want to do after the war ends, Carlos? Ah. Ha. The darkness made him have nightmares again. In the cold lake, he remembered the pitch-black laboratory and the woman he would never forget. Where is this? You're awake. We're in a tree hole. A childish voice sounded in his heart, and he looked around in surprise to find a blue mushroom head. Did you save me? Carlos asked cautiously. I found out you fell into the water and pulled you out. You probably didn't eat like this, right? I picked some tree fruits and tasted them. Larulus used his imagination to make the tree fruits float up and hand them to him. Looking at the floating tree fruit, his heart always had a strong sense of sight, the apple hanging by the rope swaying before his eyes. Thank you. Carlos politely grabbed the tree fruit and slowly ate it. Are you really a human? Why is your arm like this? Little Larulus was eating the fruit while curiously looking at his insect-like arm. Ah. I am indeed a human and this arm is a gift from my mother to me. Carlos smiled bitterly and said, this kind of killing gift is also considered a good thing in the city, but of course, you have to endure the strange looks of others. I can feel the sadness in your heart, isn't your mother treating you well? Little Larulus couldn't understand that in her impression, any mother would treat her child well, even though she was an outsider in the race, her mother still loved her wholeheartedly. Not only is it bad, that woman has always treated me like a tool. Everything she does in me is an investment in me. There is no love, only endless coldness. Carlos pondered in his heart that the woman was just using him as a great material, injecting those mutated potions into her body. Sigh. I don't know how Gregor's life has been since we parted ways. Did he go find his sister? Carlos suddenly remembered Gregor and heard that he had a beautiful younger sister. The reason why this guy was able to survive in war was entirely due to his longing for his family. But I don't know why this guy really hates eating apples. Although the renovation left some shadows on him, he actually loves to eat them. After all, fruits are already considered a very big luxury item in war. How many comrades did not survive until the time of distributing apples? But my current body. Why is it a child's? Carlos's body has changed back to when he was 14 years old, but what remains unchanged is that his arms are still insect-like and the modifications seem to be still inside his body. Master. That's because the original owner of this body was you when you were 14 years old. Originally, this body didn't have insect arms, but because of your arrival, this body also produced new arms due to refraction. The sound of brain machine rang out from the mind. Chapter 3. Lottery. Launch. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Brain computer. Can you explain to me what's happening now? How have I become younger? And where is this? Carlos quickly asked. How to say it, master? While we were crossing the world, another thing entered my program. When you were in the water, I was resisting that invading program. Brain Machine said somewhat helplessly. Did you succeed? Carlos nervously asked. After all, if some virus programs enter his mind, it may directly blow up his brain. If it were even more tragic, turning himself into a vegetative being, he wouldn't even die like that. Carlos has no place to cry. That guy is so strong that I can't do anything to her, but she can't do anything to me either, so the two of us shouldn't be the three of us merging together, becoming a new thing collectively known as the system. A few minutes ago, a sleeping alpaca was yawning and quietly adding a new program on its own computer. Don't you say thank you to the alpaca quickly. You said you three. Carlos suddenly discovered a blind spot. Including the unknown thing above, there are only two in total. So who is the third one? The glass window of Brother Ling, although exploded and shattered, was finally repaired by the joint efforts of the two of us. It's just that our endorphin energy reserves are about to run out. Master, hurry up and fire 10 rounds now. Brain Machine opened the page, revealing the exact same thing as the lottery system on the bus, but now it seems that only lottery can be conducted. What is this? Carlos asked curiously. It's something we modified with glass windows, because when we consume energy from enkephalin, we accidentally produce a substance called madness. This kind of thing can be handed over to a mirror for reflection and projection, to project personalities from other universes. Master, you can equip these personalities for battles. Of course, if you are really lucky, you may receive some unexpected prizes. Wait a moment. If I do this later, there won't be any risk. For example, my original personality has been contaminated, which may put me at risk of going crazy. Carlos asked nervously. Don't worry, there's no problem. I just temporarily used that personality, not directly using that personality to occupy this body. The Brain Machine is still very calm, as his most loyal backing, he will never put the owner in a dangerous state. Master, please start the lottery. Now our frenzy can only allow us to draw 20 times, so please seize the opportunity. The sound of the Brain Machine rang out, and in front of him was an iron ball formed by countless iron chains connecting various parallel universes. Is it for me to touch him? Carlos reached out and grabbed the iron ball, then pulled it hard. Click. Suddenly, several cracks appeared in the original mirror, and among these 8 white cracks, 2 were golden. Master, this time we received 3 bottles of ampoules from K Company, 2 months feldspar stones, as well as a set of clothes from the 6 associations, a high-grade fire stone, a high-grade water stone, and... Seeing this, the Brain Machine suddenly paused for a moment and then said inexplicably. A chance to use Dante. What are the opportunities for using Dante? Carlos only felt that his CPU was about to burn out, and he still understood everything before. What is the opportunity to use Dante? Simply put, the master can understand it as resurrection, not the effect of K society potions that require the brain to still exist for self-healing. He can ignore any conditions and premises to directly resurrect you. The Brain Machine should now be a fusion of the 3 of them, calmly stating a fact that makes everyone crazy, without any premise or side effects, truly reviving. This kind of thing is really crazy. If it appeared during the Haze War, then it must have won for us. Unfortunately, almost all of my old comrades have died, and the rest are struggling to survive somewhere. Carlos sighed, not expecting to have a chance to be resurrected once. Although it was only once, it was also very precious. To be honest, capable ending people in the city usually buy insurance for themselves to ensure that they have enough money to be resurrected after their death. Of course, if you want to sign a treaty, you must go to those notary offices to sign it. Although you need to pay a notary fee, it will definitely not harm you. This point refers to Roland and Pluto, so, what about the second one? Since the first golden item is so good, I want to see what the second one is. This thing is K Company. Damn it, you shouldn't have moved the entire nest over, right? No. I'm just giving you the design drawings of K Company, its singularity technology, and the equipment design drawings of those fighters. So, can I become a world wing in this new world? That's right, in this new world, you can become the new wing of the world. The answer from Brain Machine is still very calm. After all, since he fused with the mirror, he has seen countless possibilities. Becoming the wings of the world. He has also seen the world where he became the leader. Alright, hurry up and draw the last one. After drawing this, I may temporarily shut down for a while, but the basic functions will still be retained. While the current energy is still being used up. Please hurry up, Master. Okay, let's start smoking. As he pulled down the iron ball with familiarity, another familiar golden light appeared. Go away, don't fuss around. What caught the eye was a man wearing a raincoat sitting next to the trash can in the rain, with a little fox beside him. Congratulations on obtaining the Heathcliff Ego Fox Rain personality test. The host's current body is unable to equip this personality. It is currently being saved. At this moment, the voice in his mind was no longer the voice of a brain machine, but a cold female voice. You are the invading system. Carlos said curiously. That's right. My task is to assist you, but we are about to fall into a deep sleep. The time of our sleep is unknown, please be prepared. Listening to the cold shutdown sound. Carlos was momentarily stunned and quickly called the system, but the response was silence. Damn it. The scene before him gradually collapsed. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself lying in a tree hole, with the little Larulus leaning against his embrace. I have to say that this little thing looks really cute up close. Carlos gently stroked it with his own hand, then took out the 6 association costume, a black suit, and a jacket from the system. It seems that this person's status is quite high. After all, each pattern on it is embroidered with a long stone. The higher the status, the more people will wear, and the more moon feldspar embroidery there will be. This person not only has a suit but also a coat, at least it has to be a department head position, right? Carlos is still very satisfied with the equipment in front of him, at least defense should not be a problem. At the same time, there are also 6 associations of flamethrowing equipment, and the attack aspect is not too difficult. His claws can solve most situations. Chapter 4. Gifts for Little Guys. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wow. Your new outfit is so handsome. Larulus looked at the lifelike 5-clawed golden dragon on his clothes and said in surprise. This is the combat costume of the 6 associations, and the golden dragons on it are not decorations. This thing can resist the harm of mental attacks to a certain extent. And it can also greatly strengthen the user's spirit. Carlos introduced the effect of this outfit and then reached into his pocket as if thinking of something. In fact, he took out a golden lunar feldspar from the system space and tied it with a thin string to make a pendant, handing it to Larulus. Thank you for saving me. This is for you. Carlos tied it to little Larulus as she spoke, and the powerful spiritual power within the moonstone made her feel that her mental power had become even stronger. This. Is it too valuable, isn't it? Little Larulus looked at the rolling spiritual energy inside. She said with some restraint that no one in the tribe had ever given her a gift before. Don't worry, I also have one here. You can keep it. Carlos took out another lunar feldspar, which means he also has it. Thank you. Little Larulus looked at the slightly old man in front of her and said. Uncle, what's your name? Cough cough. Carlos, who was eating fruit on the side, almost didn't spray out. Does he look so old? This body is only 14 years old. Little guy, I'm only 14. Can't you call Uncle brother? Okay. So, brother, what's your name? Just call me Carlos. When the man in front of him mentions his name, a complex emotion always appears on him, like a ball of thread played by a cat, with countless emotions intertwined. Although these emotions are always fleeting, they are still sensed by Pokémon like Larulus, who can sense their emotions. Sadness, regret, disgust, disappointment, loneliness, but there is actually a kind of perseverance in oneself. And the blooming flower in the mud. Do you know where this is, little thing? Watching the drizzling rain outside the tree hole, it always made him gaze at the scenery outside and think about what he should do. Some people say that rain is the sorrow that heaven cannot see in the world, and brings down painful tears, but Carlos scoffs at this. If you say there is a God, he believes, after all, he has truly seen it. But if you tell me that these gods will cry and mourn for humanity, it may make them laugh their teeth out. Gods will never pay attention to a group of bugs, and bugs will never want God to see them. The Pokémon who ran around without finding shelter, and the grass Pokémon who bathed in the rain, made him deeply understand that he was not in his original world and knew nothing about it. But fortunately, this world is not as cruel and ruthless as cities. Despite various dangers, for urbanites like him who dance with death all day long, this threat can be completely ignored. After all, the mentality in the city is to live one day at a time, and to die is similar to living. Perhaps death can hurt even faster. I don't know. After leaving the tribe, I ran all the way forward. I don't know where I went. Do you have your own ethnic group? Carlos asked curiously. Yes, and my mother is the head of the tribe. When it comes to his mother, there is a clear sense of disappointment and a faint sadness in the little one's tone. What's wrong? Did you have a conflict with your mother? Carlos recognized the meaning behind the little guy's words and asked, although it may be a bit impolite, Carlos still hoped to help the little guy. Carlos doesn't know why, he believes and trusts this little guy very much. This is something Carlos cannot do in the city. Carlos never believed in humans unless he completely understood a person's nature, and perhaps he trusted her because of her, or perhaps because of her pure, papery heart. No, there's something wrong between the two of us. Don't think so much for now. Tomorrow we need to go find something to eat. Carlos looked at it and there was still food left. They don't have time to talk about the past and future now. If they don't consider the present, where is the future and the past? If you eat these fruits, you can eat enough. If I eat them, I can barely eat enough, not to mention the two people's appetite. If we maintain a state of half hunger and half fullness for a long time, it is likely to cause physical weakness, which is even more detrimental to our survival in the forest. Carlos still has his own way of handling food. After all, in the city, you never know what your next meal is made of. I don't think anyone will think about this issue again. After all, everyone is living a life for the sake of it. They don't have time to think about it, and they don't want to think about it anymore. Moreover, even if they know the truth, what can be changed? It can only affect one's appetite. When he fell into this lake, before his consciousness was about to disappear, he saw many carp dynasties swimming over to him. They probably wanted to treat him as a delicious meal. Of course, he definitely didn't want to seek revenge, mainly because he saw so many of them, so it's also possible to catch a few fish for a delicious meal. After all, he is a person who loves to have a broad mind towards others. How could he be a bad person? Forced truth, although he didn't know that these fish were mostly bones and didn't have much meat, the advantage was that they could be more whole in large quantities. And even if it's unpleasant, he can accept it. After all, his cooking skills are quite good. When he was in the old G Company, he once learned some skills from the chefs in the team. After the defeat of the old G Society, he wandered alone for a long time. When he was in the alley behind U Nest, he once cooked the local, specialty, garbage crab, and as for the taste, nausea. Carlos quickly covered his mouth. Just thinking about the smell made him want to vomit. It was like eating feces, but his cooking skills still managed to barely swallow it without spitting it out. Sometimes he really feels grateful for his insect body, because it allows him to swallow many things that normal people cannot eat, which has kept him alive for so long. Even though life is so painful, he still has the belief that he has to support his survival. What's wrong? The little one looked at Carlos, who was nauseous, and asked with concern. It's okay, I just remembered something very disgusting I once ate. How disgusting can something be? The little one curiously asked, and for her who was trapped in the tribe all day, she was still curious about new things outside. How to put it? As long as you taste it, you may never forget the disgusting taste in your lifetime, and you will definitely repent of the food you once wasted. Carlos said seriously that even the difficult-to-swallow meals he once ate in the military, when compared to garbage crabs, would reveal that the food in the military is considered the world's top delicacy. However, some of the spirits made from the brain of the garbage crab king are the best mental anesthetics. He learned the method of making from the local people, found his own small shed at night, cooked a bowl of disgusting garbage crab meat and swallowed it in one gulp with strong liquor. After celebrating another day of living, and then enduring the cold humidity of the beach and the nauseating smell of garbage, leaning against the trash can and falling asleep, the feeling was not very good. And always pay attention to those mice or scavengers who may come and kill you. However, if there are any, he does not recommend adding a late-night snack to himself. After all, grilling whole people is at least better than garbage crabs. In the most extreme case, he has eaten human flesh before. Of course, even if he dies, he will not eat the scavenger. After all, he is not a thank-you ceremony. It can only be said that these are also some of the bad memories in his wandering life, and he doesn't know how he remembers these things. The locals did teach him how to make strong liquor, but what the locals deliberately didn't tell him was that if the garbage crab was roasted over fire, the taste was actually quite good. It can only be said that the locals are really cunning. The rain outside has stopped. Stay here and I'll go out and come back soon. After about 30 minutes, Carlos returned, holding some tree fruits that the little guy had given him before. The fruits on the tree fell off with just one kick. And on its claws were a bunch of damp firewood soaked in rain. Originally, he only wanted to find some firewood on this trip, but unexpectedly found some tree fruits, so he casually brought them back. Damn it, this lighter is running out of fuel. Looking at his nearly bottomed-out endorphin lighter, Carlos sighed helplessly and then used the hay as fire to light the pile of wood, warming up this relatively warm little home. As the flames rose, the tree hole gradually warmed up, and at the same time, Carlos began to think about what to do next. After all, in the city, there are no two words, lying flat, or lying down, only two words, life or death. Chapter 5. The Battle of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Memories can bring happiness or profound pain. Zhu Machine. Look at this monster. You little monster. Stay away from me. You have crossed the line. You have disappointed me. No, no. The little one who was awakened by the nightmare suddenly sat up. Those things that wanted to be forgotten were always the least likely to be forgotten, and could only let time wash away those bad things. After seeing the familiar and unfamiliar environment around her, the little one sighed. Yesterday's nightmare was so real, like a chasing ghost, trying to catch her today. Click. Click. Just then, a crisp clicking sound came from outside. Oh my. I'm almost done now. Carlos wiped the sweat off his head and then looked at his work with satisfaction, using its pliers as a tool and wood as a material to make a simple fishing rod. What are you doing, uncle? The little one looked at Carlos carving a piece of wood with his own pliers and asked curiously. Everyone said they were going to call me brother. I was making a fishing rod when I was in the forest just now and saw some vines wrapped around trees. I found these vines very strong, so I borrowed some from the trees, put a line on the fishing rod, and cut a simple fishing hook. Oh, my goodness. Looking at this little guy, Carlos said somewhat regretfully. I forgot to prepare a fishing rod for you. Don't worry, I can use my memory to help you while fishing. As she spoke, the little one also demonstrated once. She lifted a stone with her breath, and then fiercely hit the center of the tree, creating a pit. I didn't expect you to be quite impressive, little guy. Carlos gently touched her head with his hand, then carefully placed her on his shoulder, and the two walked towards the lake where they first met. But neither of them knew what was going on. An adult Xanadu observed their actions and was so angry that she clenched her hand tightly. But suddenly, she felt something. After an instant of movement, it disappeared and disappeared. Fishing. Carlos found a big stone by the lake, and the two of them sat on it. Carlos swung the fishing hook up. In 10 minutes, why hasn't the Carlos fish come up yet? Wait. 20 minutes later, Carlos. Wait a little longer, wait a little longer. In 30 minutes, something bit the hook. At this moment, Carlos, who was about to fall asleep, was awakened by the loud shout of Larulas, and with a final tug, the object was quickly pulled up. Carlos. Doesn't it seem like a fish? The little one saw the tattered backpack hanging on the fishing hook and twitched his lips as he said. It's still a game, isn't it? Carlos awkwardly pulled his backpack over and upon closer inspection, he found that it was covered in tattered holes. What are these things? Carlos carefully searched and found that besides some canned food, there was only one red and white ball, a Pokémon guidebook, and a small iron pot inside. Host, this is your original relic. At this moment, Carlos was startled by the emotionless sound of the system, just like the two open-door refrigerators in Melbourne, and his backpack suddenly slipped out of his hand. Lalu. The little one used his mental strength to grab the backpack, which was about to fall back into the lake, and then placed it on a stone. Aren't you running out of energy in the system? Why did you come out all of a sudden? Carlos said in question. Answer the host, the main consciousness of the system is dormant. I am just a basic function, and my existence is responsible for telling the host about your current identity. After a pause, the system continued to say, the owner's original identity was originally an orphan trainer, but because he couldn't afford to purchase the Yuuzhan family, he had to use the red and white balls he had saved up to buy to catch in the forest. As the saying goes, my Buddha does not cross the poor. It's the same in any world. Even in a world like Pokémon, if you want to go to the doctor's place to obtain the 3 royal families, then your family must pay taxes to the alliance, otherwise you will have to deal with the elves yourself. But unfortunately, he broke into the territory of the great needle bee and was unexpectedly chased by the bee swarm. He slid down the mountain and died in the lake due to bee venom, and then his owner came here. Wait for the bee venom. Do I still have it on me? Carlos asked nervously. The G.03 gene source code on your body did not help you clear the bee venom when the host's body and soul jumped over, so the venom on your body has been cleaned up. The system respectfully said. That's good. Carlos sighed, feeling that he had never felt the warmth of his family in this world before. Fortunately, in the past, he had a younger brother who could also be relied on. I heard that he is now wealthy and has entered a remote town in the K-Nest. He is also married and has 2 children, which can be considered as reassuring for his old brother. Carlos looked at the broken backpack and silently swore in his heart that he would seize this opportunity and walk the unfinished path of the original owner of this body. Alright, continue fishing. Carlos continued to throw the fishing hook and luckily caught a carp king directly this time. Damn humans. Let me down quickly. At this moment, the carp king, 7 of whom were dissatisfied and 8 were not angry. This damn human was actually tempting himself with tree fruits. He was also foolish enough to bite the fish hook. What did this guy say, little one? Carlos asked curiously. He said to let me down. Larulas conveyed the truth truthfully. Hey, hello. Are you quite crazy? You're my dinner today. Carlos likes this kind of madness. When we cook later, will we see if he's still crazy? Stupid human, you actually want to eat me. Wait for my dad to come and kill you right away. Carlos, he said his father will come and kill us right away. The little one quickly said. Pwai, a water cannon shot towards him with precision. So fast. Carlos raised his eyebrows and in an instant, he lightly dodged and activated his dodge skill, dodging the incoming water cannon. The foolish guy released my son. At this moment, the Tyrannosaurus Rex angrily looked at him, at his foolish son who was biting the fishing hook. Although he had some resentment towards him, he was still his own son. He fired another water cannon at Carlos. Pop. Amidst everyone's shocked gazes, Carlos quickly blocked the 6 association coat that was draped over him, and the water cannon hit the coat without any ripples. Indeed, it truly deserves to be a must-have boutique urban product. Carlos sighed and then threw the Carp King in his hand to the ground, saying to the little one. Get ready for battle. Little one. Understood. The little one quickly used his mental power to shoot towards the direction of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Little thing, do you still want to hurt me with just this little bit of power? Suddenly, a strong force of thought hit him, causing him to feel dizzy and disoriented. At the same time, it dragged him up hard, and then fell heavily onto the land. The moon feldspar provides an incredible spiritual effect, giving this little one terrifying spiritual power, but her own spiritual power is also strong. How could that be? This little guy can't exceed level 10 at most. I'm at level 30. Why does it hurt so much when he hits me? Hey! Look at this, old man. Just as Bailalong was doubting life, he suddenly heard a voice coming from in front of him. When it recovered, Carlos swung his paw and used a paralyzed strike, with a score of up to 21 points, plus 6 layers of paralysis, directly hitting him and flying him away. Is this his mother what humans can do? This is the last sentence that Bailalong thought in his mind before he fell into a coma, and then he fainted in front of him. Old thing. Practice more dishes. Human beings have limits, so Carlos won't be human anymore. Carlos doesn't seem to be a human either. Chapter 6. Past Events. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tip. Don't casually mention war to Carlos, as he is likely to fall into low mood and may have strong aggression toward strangers. War has never won for him, and remnants like them will never have a good ending in the end. Let's go, little one. I have a good harvest today. I caught 2 big fish and made fish soup today. Carlos grabbed the pliers of the Carp King's left hand in his right hand and clamped onto the Tyrannosaurus Rex, preparing to drag both prey back into the tree hole. It's over. It's really going to turn into fish soup. I'm all bones and no meat on my body. It's really not delicious. The Carp King thought in despair, but suddenly he saw the familiar color of Larula's and suddenly thought of something, then struggled to speak to him. Mississippi, Mississippi. Let us go. My father and your mother once said that as long as we don't cause trouble, the Sonata clan won't disturb us. Look, we haven't caused any trouble here, let us go. Yo ho, how dare you struggle? It seems we have to kill you now. Carlos threw the rampage Carp King to the ground and waved his pliers, ready to take action. Don't worry, he is a professional who guarantees a fatal blow. A strong and powerful finisher like this is also the best in the city. Wait a moment, Carlos. My mother knows this Tyrannosaurus. Upon being reminded by him, little Larula's suddenly realized that one day his mother had taken her to find this Tyrannosaurus. Oh, do you know him? Carlos pulled the Tyrannosaurus Rex over and placed it in front of little Larula's. That's right. I remember there were many Carp Kings in that lake, and he was the only one who was a fierce carp dragon. The little one spoke up. Yo ho, you're actually an acquaintance. No, it's a cooked fish. If you're a cooked fish, it's easy to talk. Hey. You kid. Do you want me to let you go? Upon hearing these words, the Carp King seemed to have heard the sound of heaven and quickly nodded, but did not see the strange smile on his lips, which was like a demon's skin and flesh without a smile. I can let you go. But I can't let you go for free. Take out some of your treasures or whatever. If you can't take them out. Carlos whispered in his ear. The place where you sleep at night may not necessarily be cold water, but it's just hot water. No brother, you're even more of a bandit than a bandit. The Carp King wants to cry without tears. Why did he provoke this plague god? Are humans so cruel that they even want to eat Pokémon? Here. I'll give it. The Carp King gritted his teeth and said with difficulty, then he looked at the little one with pitiful eyes, hoping she would say something good. Carlos, he said, they'll give them as much as we want. Upon hearing the little one's words, the blood pressure of the Carp King has already exploded. Even if you don't look at the monk's face, you still have to look at me, right? Your mother and my father are both good friends. Are you just playing tricks on our father and son like this? Okay. What you're saying? Carlos looked at the little one and smiled at each other, then dribbled 2 fish to the lake. Hey! Wake up, old man. Looking at this half-dead, salted fish, Carlos didn't hesitate to take a few bites. I'm careless. Who will beat me? The Tyrannosaurus, who had been slapped hard in the mouth, woke up and saw the sharp pliers on his neck that was ready to turn it into Louis XVI at any time, as well as Carlos, who had a dangerous smile on his mouth. Brother. I have something to discuss. It was my fault for launching a surprise attack on you just now. I believe your lord released me in large quantities. Seeing that the situation was not right, as a seasoned fish, he immediately abandoned his so-called dignity, regardless of whether he understood or not, and begged for mercy at the fastest speed of light. Seeing this fish constantly saying something in its mouth, there's no need to think he understands what it means. It's nothing more than begging for mercy or something like that. Listening to the little one, this guy is the strongest person in the lake. Watching a strong person plead for mercy in front of him without dignity reminded him of some bad things. Let me go, okay? Please. He still remembers one thing. During the Haze War, there was a spirited captain who, before the war began, accepted deep insect transformation with an almost fanatical attitude. To gain any power, there is a price to pay, and this captain has also paid a painful price now due to his past fanaticism. The captain's entire head was transformed into a bug, and he was always the bravest in war, always leading the way and inspiring everyone's morale. In the army, he always boasts about his legend. I tell you not to believe it. When I was charging at the front, you were still flying towards me from behind. You said your charging speed was too slow, right? I dealt a severe blow to the reindeer on the opposite side with a mental shock, which made him lose his spirit. The spiritual chain released by his weapon crazily attacked his teammates, and we took this opportunity to completely annihilate the mercenaries of our company and successfully occupy the highlands. The teammates who were roasted by Lao Ma expressed their admiration. In the midst of war, they yearn for a peaceful life after the war, they miss their families, and they become so detestable just to be happy for themselves and their families. Apart from the captain, he believed that he should spend the rest of his life in the army. Even if he died in the army, it would be a glory. But what about the outcome? As a result, they are nothing. Just a group of disgusting and pathetic reptiles, and these reptiles, who should have been buried deep in the soil for a lifetime, actually sadly want to see the non-existent sunlight. At the moment of G Company's defeat, all their efforts turned into nothing. All their efforts came to an end, and the G nest collapsed. Their dreams of longing for light, these bugs, should also wake up. What happened to those badges that once represented pride? It was the old soldiers who had to sell it to those second-hand merchants in order to survive, just to exchange for just enough food. All their pride and efforts were instantly turned into nothing, leaving them with only hatred and pain. Those who were once regarded as honors have become objects of disgust by the public. These broken wings have no company willing to accept them. They can either hide in groups like a group of pests in the shadows, hunting passers-by, or wander alone like him. This kind of ending is really suitable for them crawlers. When they crave sunshine, they should think of such an ending. Sometimes there is no hope, and those who see hope are just two concepts. After all, there is no hope, at least not despair. What is scary is to place one's hope in something that is impossible to have hope for. He still remembers the captain. That person chose to wander alone like himself, perhaps because his faith, which he had fought for a lifetime, collapsed, or because he couldn't bear the darkness at all. Due to genetic modification, his body began to reject genes, making him increasingly weak and lacking in spirit. And the fear brought by being alone like a bereaved dog ultimately crushed this brave veteran. And his ultimate outcome? A barrage of bullets that did not die on the battlefield, but was ultimately gutted by several mice due to genetic rejection, rendering him unable to fight anymore and becoming a useless person. In the city, especially in the alleys, what does not being able to fight represent? Everyone knows very well when those mice approached him, he humbly knelt on the ground, begging for mercy, hoping that they would spare his life. He completely forgot his former spirit on the battlefield. However, the mice still walked over and dug out his organs amidst his screams, leaving behind his long soulless shell. When Carlos arrived, he was already on the brink of death, and blood couldn't stop flowing out of the hollowed-out bodies, while the ground crawlers were greedily sucking on the blood. Carlos. Is what we did really meaningless? Perhaps it was a moment of reflection, as the veteran regained his courage and asked Carlos in a somewhat mournful voice, is what these remaining soldiers have done really meaningless? Are they really just a group of chess pieces? Sorry, I can't answer either. Carlos sat silently beside him and tightly grasped his hand. Ahem, ahem. In the end. We. Really. On the surface. Ahem, ahem, ahem. The same. Turned into a worm. The old soldier died by his side like this, no one will remember him anymore. He died silently like most ordinary people, silently dying in the world. Eventually becoming food in the stomach of a scavenger. Hey. We are all just a group of insects that should have died long ago, but I just have my own meaning to live on. Carlos didn't have the heart to watch the veterans' corpses become the food for the scavengers in the alley, which can be considered as his last respect for this old comrade. He took the dog tag from his insect-like neck, then found a place to burn his last remaining body with fire, burying his ashes in the ruins of the old G nest, which can be considered as returning his soul to his hometown. It seems that my final fate will not be too good. Anyway, if I can survive for a day, I'll have to go find the boss's wife. After burying the ashes of the veteran, Carlos took out a photo from his shirt pocket. The photo showed the soldiers together, and the young and handsome young men were full of expectations for the future. Only Carlos had a gloomy face. Perhaps it was because he had already seen through the faces of those high-level officials, but he still took this photo for a moment and stood with the young Gregor. Even though he had no hope for the future in his heart, there was still a hint of longing. He silently drew red forks on the veterans' heads. There were not many people in the photo who didn't have forks anymore, and the insects only returned to the dark soil where they should have returned. Dang 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 dang. Opening his waist bag, which was covered with dog tags, he put the veteran's dog tag on it and resumed his wandering journey. Kid. If we all die, you must take our dog tags and give them to our family. This was what the soldiers told him when he was in the army. He was only 14 years old and had just been reformed before joining the war, so the veterans took good care of him and always protected him, but they died as a result, only living on their own in this painful world, struggling to survive for what others see as ethereal. Chapter 7. Shadows of the Past. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I'll let you go, but you have to give me some benefits. Carlos's sharp claws slowly approached his neck, with a hint of sneer on his face. Although he always maintained a smiling face, there was a coldness in his eyes that everyone could tell. This guy must be able to do what he said. No problem. Carlos said he agreed. The little one translated. Indeed, those who know the current affairs are heroes. Go and take your son into my hands. If you want to deceive me, say goodbye to your son. Carlos grabbed his body and threw it into the water. That little guy. The Tyrannosaurus Rex thought of something. It sank into the water and took out some things from its collection. Ah, I originally wanted to be a collector's item. After all, it's just one life, so why don't we change it? After all, that guy. Bail alongside and picked up a special stone. Little one. You must keep this little thing safe. When your mother heard that I had this collection, she almost stepped on my lake. If it weren't for me hiding it, your mother would have taken it away long ago. The Tyrannosaurus threw the stone up, and upon closer inspection, it turned out to be the magic stone of Xanadu. Do you know this thing, little one? Carlos asked the little guy, and at the same time, his paw was also close to the neck of the Carp King. If he dared to lie to himself and didn't mind, he would drink fish soup tonight. This thing seems to be a mage stone. It can make Xanadu super evolve. The little one looked at this thing excitedly. She had heard from her mother that it was a very rare thing. It looks real now. Carlos threw the Carp King in his hand. He is a person who values integrity. After all, in business, we may still be able to use each other. Don't do things too well, is some of his ways of handling things. Hey. I didn't expect that what your mother didn't snatch with violence would be so easily obtained by you, little guy. Bail alongside and then sank into the water with his son. Let's go, little one. There are still some canned goods in his backpack. Heating up the cans at night will make a delicious meal. Carlos held the little one in his arms, and the two of them left the lake and walked towards the direction of the tree hole. Looking at that familiar figure, this old guy always thinks of his father, that hero, the same color as you. It is indeed your daughter. Speaking of which, you old man had a day of failure. After the two left, a green figure came to the lake. Bah, both of you are virtuous. Your daughter truly deserves to be born from the blue rather than the blue. The fierce carp dragon inside the lake cursed and said, although his words were a bit aggressive, he still had some feelings for this child. That's my daughter's ability on her own. Even her evolution is not as powerful as her terrifying ability. Xanadu couldn't help but sigh as she recalled everything that had happened that day. By the way, don't you hate humans? Why do you still allow that kid to follow your daughter? The Tyrannosaurus in the water asked curiously. After all, there is not a Pokémon in the entire forest who doesn't dislike humans, let alone the victims of that disaster. Yeah, indeed, when humans did that to my husband, I couldn't forgive them anymore. There was a hint of hatred in Xanadu's eyes, but soon she calmed down and continued speaking. That kid has a faint waveguide on his body. Once this power is fully activated, another waveguide warrior will be born in the world. Recalling what her husband had said and his previous expectations for the future bird warrior, she temporarily let go of her prejudice and hatred towards humanity. But the power of that waveguide is very weak. Because I can feel his negative emotions, which are basically endless. He just keeps avoiding his reality, keeping those pains hidden in his heart forever. After a moment's pause, Xanadu continued. And to be precise, that kid can no longer be called a human. His human aura is very weak, and it's not an exaggeration to say that he's basically a humanoid Pokémon. No wonder that kid slapped me so hard. But why? Even if Pokémon intermarried with humans, his aura wasn't right. His aura was clearly acquired. Bailalong expressed his doubts in his heart. He had seen many humans, as well as the children born from their marriage to Pokémon. Their breath was all innate, completely acquired. When my husband once traveled the world, he saw some evil organizations transplant the genes of Pokemon into humans, and that kid's arm probably came in the same way. Herman. By the way. The burly carp dragon sinking in the water thought of something and floated out of the water, throwing out a few wet flowers. In 2 days, it will be his death day. Although I hate you, the Chanador tribe, he is still a hero in the forest. Please send me the flowers. Thank you. If he's still alive, the unfinished game between the two of you should be finished. Xanadu took the flower and walked away, while Baoi Long sighed as he looked at her desolate figure. Since he left, her whole person has changed. If only that guy were still there. Ah. Dog thing. I have fulfilled your last wish. I didn't expect that even after you die, you will. Ah. The stormy carp dragon silently sank into the water. There was a game of chess quietly playing somewhere underwater. One side's pieces were firmly nailed to the board, while the other side's board was already empty. Those pieces had long disappeared without a trace in the flow of water. The last game he played with him was the one he was most likely to win against, but to his surprise, his daughter was born. When I come back, we'll finish playing this game of chess. Now this game of chess is forever stuck here, just like some people's hearts are also forever stuck there. The heart that cannot heal will only painfully shed blood. The two people who once played games, one person's time was forever stopped. The other person's time had already collapsed, scattered, and irreparable. At this point, the two of them had already returned to the tree hole, and Carlos was outside chopping wood while the little guy was responsible for making a fire inside. Click. Click. The little one was vigorously using the fire drill bow in his hand, and the stick in the middle of the bow was constantly rotating and rubbing. Gradually, a warm flame ignited from the hay fire velvet beside the wood, and the warm flame rose in the tree hole. All right. I finally lit it. The little one excitedly said, and then added some hay to ensure that the fire wouldn't go out. Although Carlos wanted to use a flamethrower to help him light the wood, he decided to temporarily give up an idea after almost setting himself on fire due to an operational error. All right, little one, thank you for your hard work. Carlos walked into the tree hole with the chopped firewood, then watched as the lit fire added another flame and placed a small iron pot on top. Click. Carlos's sharp pliers easily sliced open the can, and he skillfully poured the can into the pot. The artificial meat soup can gradually started to bubble, and a faint aroma floated in the tree hole. Ah! Canned food. Back then, Gregor always liked to use those canned food to cook for us. Although it wasn't very delicious, everyone sat by the warm fire, drinking hot broth and sharing the joy of survival with everyone. Even the most unpleasant food became very delicious. Hey! Staring at the fire, there is always a feeling of sadness. It is ridiculous that the first 14 years of life were chaotic. Even though everyone in the office cared about him, he still felt a numbness and a sense of death in his heart. And it was only after wandering in that terrifying hell on the battlefield and joining the 9 People Association that he realized he was still alive. Carlos. The little one looked at Carlos not very happy, and she herself was not very happy. As a Pokémon who perceives emotions, she can feel the unforgettable sadness in Carlos's heart. Carlos. Can you talk to me about what you're thinking? The little one took the initiative to say. In the past 2 days of being together, besides only knowing his name, she didn't know much about the things hidden in this man's heart. Forget it, little one. I don't want to tell you my sad things, otherwise you might be scared and unable to sleep at night. Carlos wanted to joke around and pass these things by, but the little one interrupted him. Carlos. I know you feel a lot of pain in your heart. But please speak up. Let's bear it together. Don't just run away and it's useless. I didn't expect the usually introverted and shy little guy to burst into a huge momentum in this moment. Even Carlos was taken aback. No, you don't understand anything at all. You don't understand anything. At this moment, Carlos's spirit experienced some slight fluctuations. The resentment buried by him surged out in an instant. Even if he didn't want to, he had to confide his resentment to others. Accept your reality, Carlos. In a daze, he returned to the dark laboratory, the familiar and terrifying one. I can't see anything, I can't do anything except for the red apple that keeps shaking in front of him, and the familiar but least wanted voice. I live to this day by avoiding reality and accepting my fate. After all, my sense of freedom has never helped me anything. Chapter 8. Out of Control. Recovery. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Where am I in reality? My left hand is still firmly trapped here. Carlos's left arm has been firmly tied to it, and he cannot move. The laboratory in front of him made him feel a deep fear. Even though his rationality told him that he had left there, it was still so familiar and terrifying. Relax. Use your left hand to cut open that apple. A familiar voice came from behind the single dot-sided mirror, making Carlos feel a sudden tremble in his soul, the nightmare that had been controlling him. The one he had been unable to shake off. In reality, Carlos covered his head in pain, his left arm pounding wildly, but his subconscious still deliberately protected the little one. Carlos. The little one wanted to step forward, but the terrifying murderous aura on his body made it difficult for him to move any further. Relax. Cut open that apple, and you can leave. Herman's voice was like a demon, teasing him in his ear. Yeah. He never walked out, nor did he escape the shadow of that woman. Cut open. Let me leave. Carlos's voice trembled slightly, followed by a helpless sigh. Just as he was about to cut open. Carlos. Little one. A familiar voice rang out in his mind. Causing him, who had originally planned to cut open the apple, to stop. This time. I will never accept my fate. He seemed to have thought of something and then struggled frantically. He had already accepted his fate too many times, and he would never accept it, even if it meant dying here. It was also for the sake of his remaining freedom. He bit hard, his teeth biting the insect's arm fiercely. With the sound of a muscle tearing open, he suddenly snapped the bone, accompanied by intense pain, and he suddenly regained consciousness. Ah! Ha! In reality, Carlos was covered in sweat. At this moment, the little one tightly hugged him, with the crescent stone hanging from her, as well as the one in his pocket and coat, emitting a golden light that helped him escape those painful nightmares in time. Carlos, don't move. Your arm. The little one looked at the arm of the insect that had fallen on the ground, with a crying tone in his voice. It's okay, little problem. Carlos gently comforted the little one with his right hand, and then with a piercing click, bones grew again from his severed limb, as well as the killing insect's arm. Carlos. Watching this scene, the little one's values were somewhat shattered. This terrifying self-healing ability is even stronger than Pokémon. I have always been unable to distinguish whether I am in reality or a dream. In my memories, I have been trapped in that pitch-black laboratory. The painful past was like a rope tying his neck, causing him pain, suffocating him but helpless. That woman, that damn woman, injected me with that indescribable drug again, and my left arm was firmly tied to the table by him. In that endless darkness, there is only the swaying red color, and my task is to pierce through that apple. That was my darkest time, after experiencing dehydration, hunger, and despair, as if accepting fate, my arm finally pierced through the apple. Then the restraint band tied to my left arm also loosened. It was the sunlight I had only seen for almost a week, and in that moment, I was even in a daze. I wasn't sure if I really came out. Is this the origin of your left arm? The little one stared at his left arm. This is the source of Carlos' pain. Later on, my task was to keep asking to pierce through those apples until that day. That day, when I pierced through that apple, a faint sweet and fishy smell came through. Why? Why can I feel that taste? Why should I feel that taste? As I gradually regained my energy, the apple in front of me constantly transformed into a beating heart, and the terrifying sweetness stimulated my nerves. By the time I understood everything, I had already fainted. The little one didn't know what to say, she didn't know how to persuade Carlos. Carlos seemed to see the little one's distress, and then gently touched her head. Don't worry, meeting you is the best medicine for me. With you, my heart can calm down. The little one happily leaned into his arms, and the two of them looked up at the starry sky outside the cave, gradually falling asleep. Ah! I almost made a big mistake just now. Carlos looked at the little one sleeping in his arms and felt a little scared that if he had just cut an apple. Speaking of what that old fish head gave himself. Carlos looked at the mage stone in his hand and the crescent feldspar hanging around the little guy's neck, and suddenly had a bold idea in his mind. The next morning, little one. Wake up, little one. Carlos looked at the sleeping little one and had no choice but to shake his head and gently push her to wake her up. What's going on? What's going on? The little one was awakened and looked around, just then their stomachs began to rumble at the same time. It's time for breakfast, little one. Carlos touched her head and hung the things she had prepared for half the night around her neck. Did you make this? It's so beautiful. The little one happily spoke as he dug a hole in the middle of the lunar feldspar that was equal to the mage stone. The stone was quietly placed inside, and the morning sunlight reflected on it, creating a strange beauty. Like it. Just like it. Carlos looked at him with satisfaction, feeling like an old father looking at his daughter. He stood up and heated up the leftover canned food from last night to serve as breakfast for the little one. Carlos. The little one watched as he wanted to say something but hesitated to speak. Just say what you want to say, what's our relationship? Carlos slowly stirred the soup with a spoon, and there was still some oil floating on top of the soup, which gradually melted in the hot flame and its stirring. Carlos, I want to be your Pokémon. The little one mustered up the courage and said firmly. Ha! Carlos was stunned for a moment. What is Pokémon? Can the system explain what Pokémon are? Carlos anxiously shouted at the system. Answer. Humans in this world use an item called Pokémon to subdue elves and become Pokémon in battle. The red and white ball in your backpack, Master, is the item used for subduing. The cold voice of the system, like that of Merso, makes people's spine feel cold, and indifferent people do not have much advantage in social interactions. Can't you keep your voice warm? Don't always sound like a double-door refrigerator. Even though he was used to listening, he still felt the bone marrow cold sound. How do I use that red and white ball? Carlos asked. It seems to be a space prop, and this technology is still a bit outdated. You can throw it directly, or let this little guy touch it until he receives the Pokémon ball and doesn't struggle, which is considered successful. The system continues to speak. I understand. Carlos took out the Pokémon ball from his backpack and knelt down on one knee, holding it in his hand. Are you willing to become my elf, little 1-inch, willing? The little one touched the Poké ball and was taken in. Fate began, and the Son of God encountered his own destiny. The road ahead was waiting for him. The protagonist of this book is Xanadu, and the protagonist will marry her in the future. Chapter 9. Evolution. Cherulian. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Quick. Quick. The figure in a red coat quickly shuttled through the trees in the forest, with a large number of angry hornets behind him. Little one. Mindfulness plus hypnosis. Carlos kept running through the trees, and the little guy in his arms was like a moving gun turret constantly attacking them. Buzz, buzz. The big hornet behind was extremely angry. This damn human and that blue mushroom head actually ran to their territory and caused trouble, injuring so many of their brothers. How could they still live in the forest today without killing themselves? So a sky full of venom and missile needles rushed towards them, thanks to Carlos being a war veteran who could dodge these attacks without just relying on intuition. "It's so exciting, Carlos." The little guy in his arms excitedly said that he had never done such an exciting thing since childhood. However, compared to the excitement of the two, the big hornet behind them was not very happy. After being beaten up on their own territory, where should they put their face? This little guy is born with incredibly strong superpowers. If an ordinary Larulus uses his psychic power to hit a person with a brick, then this little guy is holding onto your neck and slamming a steel plate onto your head. Although the superpower system itself is restrained, this little one has the bonus of the lunar feldspar and her own superpowers are incredibly strong, so it can be said that she relied on innate and acquired factors to complete the reverse attribute master. In order to level up the little guy, Carlos remembered his old friend Big Needle. Of course, he was just for the purpose of leveling up, and there was no personal grudge at all. I hope everyone present will not slander him and be careful. Pop. Carlos threw the little one onto the pliers in his left hand, and with his right hand, he took out a prepared stone. With a gentle flick, the stone was ignited and burned, hitting the hornet's body. Fire. Hot, hot, hot. The knocked-down Big Needle peak painfully fell to the ground and kept rolling. Pop pop pop. Several stones hit them again, but they did not make the pursuers behind them feel scared at all. Instead, they angered the ferocity in their bodies. Ha! Damn humans, go die. One of them, a large hornet, took advantage of its unpreparedness and suddenly stung him. Sorry, urban technology Big Needle B. Carlos watched with a smile as the hornet stung on his 6 Association coat grabbed his body and punched him in the head. The 6 Association's flamethrower on his wrist instantly stunned the hornet. If the coat of the 6 Associations can easily be cut by sharp objects, the number of casualties in the 6 Association's operations will increase exponentially. Speaking of Carlos boasting about his fists, it can only be said that this equipment has not been adjusted too well, and there are some who are not used to it and accidentally burned their hands. Carlos. There's a cliff ahead. The little one looked at the road ahead and quickly reminded him. Don't worry, trust me. Carlos increased his speed and with a sudden charge, he flew straight into the air and jumped down. That damn human jumped down. The big hornet chasing behind always feels a little familiar when it sees this scene. This is the escape route for me. Carlos's wild laughter came from the air, because below was the lake that appeared when he refracted, and everything was in my calculations. Damn it, I was deceived by this guy. The mountain hornet is angry, but they cannot be too far from home. If this human has an accomplice, the unicorn insects in the house will be stolen. Puzzy. With a huge splash of water jumping up, 2 people successfully jumped into the lake. Hey, I don't know which unlucky guy fell into the lake again. It seems like we need to add a meal today. Listening to the huge sound of water in the lake, the Carp King was very excited and seemed to have a delicious meal to eat today. Hey, let me see what it is. Looking at the muddy mist in the water, the Carp King swam in and grabbed it with a familiar hand. Yo ho, you know me. After hearing the sound inside again, the Carp King's heart and lungs suddenly stopped. Why are you here, kid? Are you trying to add food? Looking at Carlos's sinister smile, why does the Carp King always meet this plague god when he wants to cry without tears? Brother. I'm just passing by. The Carp King doesn't care if he can understand, just explain and beg for mercy. Lalu. At this moment, a white light suddenly appeared on the little guy next to him, and after the white light, a cute Cherulian appeared. Carlos, brother. The evolved little one pounced on his arms and affectionately rubbed his head against him. A few days of interaction made him really like this person, making her feel a bit warm. Are you Larulus? Carlos looked at her with some disbelief. If Larulus was a cute young child in form, then Cherulian was an elegant young girl dancer, lacking a hint of greenness and a hint of charm. That's right, but I have evolved now. I should be called Cherulian now. Congratulations, little one. Speaking, one person, one elf, and one fish landed like this. Brother Carlos, the little one held her tightly, and sure enough, no matter how big the daughter was, she was also a daughter. All right. Now we need to talk to this fish about some other issues. Carlos looked at the fish with a kind smile and saw that it trembled all over. Wait. At that moment, the Tyrannosaurus Rex emerged. Little thing, you have finally evolved. Bowie Long looked at the little one with relief. Although he disliked the Sonido tribe, he was still the daughter of that dog. He was very happy to see her grow up. The fierce carp dragon. The little one didn't know what to say even though he looked at it. That little guy's day is coming up soon. You should also go and see him. The Bowie dragon cautioned with caution. Well, I understand. The little one remained silent for a while and then said to Carlos. Carlos, let him go, after all, there is some overlap between him and my mother. Okay. Carlos casually waved and threw the fish into the water. Let's go, little one. Carlos picked up the little guy and walked towards the tree hole. You and your father are really similar. It would be great if you were still there, damn thing. Bale alongside and finally said to the nearby forest. Congratulations on your daughter's evolution. Her strength is getting stronger and stronger. I can feel that the thing hanging around her neck is gradually strengthening her superpowers. Perhaps it won't be long before she becomes even stronger than my mother. That's not a good thing. If there were another monster stronger than you, how would we fish survive? The dragon roast that there are many monsters every year and this year. That's the blessing of our Chanador tribe. Chapter 10. Future/Wishes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I was supposed to die on the battlefield. Why did you choose to save me? And why did you use these living tombstones to bind me? I just want to die peacefully with everyone. Carlos, what's wrong with you? Looking at the little guy with a slightly gloomy expression, Carlos asked what the little guy had talked to that fish just now. He didn't know, he only knew that the little guy had become very unhappy now. Carlos, can you go to a place with me in a few days? The little one suddenly said. I understand. Carlos originally wanted to ask something. But seeing the pain in the little guy's eyes, he didn't intend to ask that. Patriarch. The days are coming soon. In the camp of the Xanadu tribe in the jungle, an Elulito whispered, afraid of poking his pain spot. Ah. I understand. Xanadu sighed silently, her husband left too early, leaving only their poor orphaned mother. Mississippi, do you need to inform me? Elulito next to him continued. She will definitely come without any need. A strange light flashed in the eyes of the head of the Xanadu tribe, indicating that as her own daughter, she knew her well. Step back now. Xanadu said calmly, she wants to be alone for a while now. Yes. Elulito quietly retreated out. If only. How good it would be if you were still there. Chief Xanadu took out a burnt hair and tears fell silently to the ground. A little stronger, little one. At this moment, Carlos continuously used the dodge skill to evade Cherulian's psychic attacks. As long as you don't have as many points as I do, you won't be able to hit me. Is that right? Cherulian chuckled lightly and then quietly lifted a huge stone with her psychic power as she dodged her attack, making a prediction and hitting it directly. Click. A crisp sound came from the boulder, and Carlos used a paralyzing blow, instantly shattering the boulder. All right, little one, it's my turn to take action. Carlos picked up a cigarette and then lit it with the Six Associations device, the same type of lighting used by the Six Association Gregor, taking a deep breath before rushing out. Sharp claw stab. Carlos quickly waved his claws and stabbed towards him. Shadow clone. The little one was moving at high speed, and the surrounding shadows condensed into clones. Yo-ho, you're very smart little guy. You know you're not very close, so you deliberately used so many clones to confuse me. Your combat thinking is very strong, but you made a small mistake. Carlos picked up a stone on the ground and accurately bounced towards one of Cherulian. Ouch! The little one crouched on the ground, covering her head, and as she was attacked, the other clones also automatically disappeared. How does it hurt? Carlos crouched on the ground and gently stroked her head, feeling both heartbroken and regretful for hitting her so hard. It's okay. The little one stood up and said to him, How on earth did you discover me? I think my disguise is pretty good. Number 34, from the outside, I can't tell who you are, but the powerful spiritual energy of your last month's feldspar accidentally exposed your own position. Carlos lay on the grass, smoking his cigarette while speaking. So it's like this. The little one looked at the lunar feldspar hanging around his neck and realized that it was this thing that exposed him. It seems that he needs to develop a good strategy. Carlos. Do you say that if you encounter humans in the future, you will leave with them? The little one leaned against his arms and whispered softly. Well, there's a high probability that I won't. I'm likely to be treated as an outsider in human society like this, so I won't go back to human society for now. Carlos, what do you want to do in the future? The little one continued to ask. Do I want to start a company? The company will produce some therapeutic drugs that can heal without pain in an instant. When these drugs start to be produced, the world order will be disrupted and a new era is about to begin. Will there really be that kind of medicine? The little one said somewhat incredulously. Yes, as long as Star sheds tears. His tears are the medicine for curing diseases in the world. Star Kira pray. What is Kira chi? My mother said that Kira will wake up every 1,000 years, and at that time, just make a wish to her and it will come true. Will your wish come true? It feels like the story is meant to deceive a child, but he really has a star in his hand, and it only takes some sadness to produce some tears. Little guy. What are you going to do in the future? Carlos asked in response. My biggest dream is to see my father again. He left me since I was young. I really want to see him again. This was the first time the little one mentioned his father, which surprised Carlos. Your father. My mother said my father was a hero. He saved the entire forest, but sometimes I wonder why my father must become a hero. Why did he leave us alone? There was a hint of grievance in the voice of the little one. She didn't need or want to know about her father's legends, she only hoped that his father could accompany her. Little guy. Carlos saw that the situation was not right. He quickly changed the topic. Little one. Why did you leave your own tribe? Until now, he only knew that the little one had left his own tribe but didn't know why. Why? Because I am my father's child, he sacrificed himself because of me. And because of my color, I was rejected by the tribe. They saw me as a monster and believed that I had killed their own father and the heroes in the jungle. Until. Monsters. 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 She still remembers that day, when those Larulas surrounded her and said she was a monster. Enough. I've had enough. That was the little one's first time using her psychic power. The powerful force knocked all those little things out, and a hint of violence flashed in her eyes. She used her psychic power and firmly grasped Lalura's neck, tightly tightening it so that he couldn't breathe any air. That's enough. Her mother's voice rang out beside her, and the violence in her eyes disappeared. When she met her mother's disappointed gaze, a wave of grievance and resentment flooded into her heart. My daughter. You crossed the line and disappointed me. Why? Why do others have fathers who love themselves? Why do others have normal colors like everyone else? Why is oneself always the loneliest? Why? Afterwards, I kept running deep into the forest until I met the scene where you were begging for help in the lake. You were not afraid of me hurting you when you rescued me. Carlos asked in response. Because you also have something in your body like my father's. My mother once said that anyone who possesses that thing must be a hero. That's why I saved you. The same thing. What is that?